In a press briefing at Uganda Debt Network in Kampala, the civil society organizations raised a number of concerns about the performance of the World Bank and its portfolio in Uganda, saying the World Bank is performing poorly in the country with the portfolio performance at only 20%.
At the moment, both the government of Uganda and the bank are not as open about its portfolio performance. We believe that the World Bank has a responsibility to openly and transparently share the difficulties in the execution of projects that our government has negotiated and contracted on behalf of our citizens.
The civil society is concerned that although the World Bank is a bank with all mandated rights to offer loans, both the World Bank and the Ugandan government are failing to judiciously follow established rules and guidelines about compensation and resettlement, where the plight of the people they value and protect is being undermined. With escalating issues of corruption in the country, the civil society is disturbed that both government and the World Bank are not demonstrating sufficient will necessary to decisively deal with the problem that has become endemic and threatening the execution of development projects and service delivery programs in the country.
In the most recent inquiry into the road sector, a government-instituted commission of inquiry reported that our country lost about 4 trillion Uganda shillings to corruption in the road subsector alone over a period of 7 years. This is equivalent of stealing 5,000 kilometers of paved roads.
If you open some of these projects internationally for international competition, therefore, you don't necessarily end up with a Chinese company in all the major projects. Of course, there is the bit that the money comes from China, yes, but once the money comes from whichever source to Uganda, it becomes money for Uganda. It is the responsibility of the Ugandan citizens to know about it and also later on to be able to pay back.
You realize that at times when feasibility studies are not done, a lot of money is then going to sit on the account, while actually we are now paying off the interest. Now, those are issues that actually the World Bank knows, and they have documented them. So as to why they're not following through, maybe sort of the issues that I know the World Bank is trying to tackle with government, but they know that feasibility studies at times have not been made, at times timely feasibility studies have not been done. And that to some extent has actually affected the whole issue of loans. You have loans sitting on the account, but guess what? Because you cannot proceed before certain issues now are being settled.
Single sourcing is another issue of concern that the civil society says that the government has violated Ugandan laws by navigating around national laws and the international best practices governing public procurement, singling out the Chinese companies being increasingly picked for major construction projects, and yet there are many Ugandan companies that can do the job.
There is a claim that roofings, roofings, in Ugandan company, has been struggling to supply the hardware necessary for construction of Karuma. Okay? We know steel products from roofings. They have been building our nation for a while. And you know the percentage that has been given to roofings. The rest is imported from China. 1% of supply.
The risk of single sourcing is mainly what we are putting forth. And we do not expect the caliber of a World Bank kind of fund or project to be involved in single sourcing unless there is explanation to the contrary.
Look at local content. One of the things that is supposed to happen is when you get a company, what I know what other countries do when they're going to bring on board particular organizations, you sign an MOU, you're supposed to pass on skills to the locals. Are skills actually being passed on when you're using Chinese? I mean, we have no problem with using Chinese, but is the rightful procedure? When you look at the PPDAs, do they only provide for single sourcing? Because when you're using single sourcing, you're closing out other people.
The civil society now intends to speak to the World Bank to re-evaluate all ongoing proposed operations in Uganda with a view to resettling its engagement with the government of Uganda. Use the bank's influence to ensure that all development projects, whether bilateral or multilateral, go through competitive bidding processes in order to increase the level of transparency, accountability, and value for money. They also want the World Bank funding to Uganda to be based on the level of transparency and not only respect to World Bank funds, but all national funds. Stephen Mwiri, WBS News.